Have you ever looked at the person sleeping next to you and realized, with a sudden icy clarity, that you don't know them at all? That the life you're building together, the future you're saving for, is just a meticulously constructed lie playing out on a stage built entirely for you? I didn't think it was possible. I thought I had the perfect setup. 3 years. That's how long we'd been together. 1,000 days of inside jokes, shared dinners, whispered promises in the dark, and planning for a future I was absolutely certain of. I was literally working double shifts, grinding myself into the dirt 6 days a week, coming home with grease on my hands and a permanent ache in my lower back. I was secretly hoarding cash in a separate hidden savings account for a diamond ring. I had the tab open on my browser for months. I wanted it to be perfect. I wanted to give her the world. But perfection is a fragile, dangerous illusion. And mine shattered completely at 2 o'clock in the morning on a random, unremarkable Tuesday. It started subtly, so quietly I almost slept right through it. Her phone began vibrating against the wooden nightstand. It wasn't a single text. It was a rapid-fire sequence of notifications that cut through the dead silence of the bedroom. Buzz, 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 relentless. When I groggily opened my eyes, squinting in the dark, and asked her who on earth was texting at this ungodly hour, she didn't even bother to fully wake up or look over at me. It's just work stuff. Work stuff. At 2 a.m. Now, I know the golden rule of modern relationships. You never go through your partner's phone. It's the ultimate violation of trust. It's a line you don't cross. But what are you supposed to do when your gut is screaming at you that the trust has already been broken? When every instinct you have developed as a human being is flashing neon warning signs in your brain? I lay there in the dark for another hour, just listening to the rhythmic sound of her breathing. It sounded so peaceful, so innocent. Finally, I couldn't take the suffocating weight in my chest anymore. I slid out of bed, holding my breath so the mattress wouldn't creak, grabbed her phone from the nightstand, and walked out into the hallway, slipping into the bathroom and locking the door silently behind me. The cold ceramic tile under my bare feet grounded me for a second, but my hands were visibly shaking as I typed in her passcode. I knew it, of course. We had no secrets, or so I thought. I opened her messages, expecting to find, I don't know, a single mistake, a drunken lapse in judgment, a moment of weakness I could try to rationalize. What I found instead was an entirely different reality, a parallel universe where I was nothing more than the punchline. I didn't just find one guy. I found an organized, highly compartmentalized roster. My stomach didn't just drop. It completely plummeted into an endless, dark abyss as I opened the first thread. It was her boss. The same guy she complained about to me over dinner. The guy she said was a tyrant and a micromanager. The text thread was horrifyingly graphic, detailing a completely different dynamic than the one she portrayed. They were talking about office supply closets and late-night inventory checks. But okay, I thought, panic rising in my throat. An affair with the boss. It's a terrible, trashy cliché, but understandable in the twisted, power dynamic logic of infidelity. I took a shaky breath, feeling the walls of the bathroom closing in. Then, my thumb hovered over the screen, and I scrolled down. There was a second thread. My heart began to hammer frantically against my ribs as I read the contact name. It was our neighbor, the guy from down the hall. The friendly, smiling guy who always helped us hold the elevator and offered to carry our heavier groceries. They were actively, meticulously planning times for him to slip over to our apartment while I was working my double shifts. While I was out breaking my back, ruining my body to secure our financial future, he was walking 30 feet down the hallway, turning the knob of my front door and sleeping in my bed. The audacity was sickening. At this point, the air in the bathroom felt too thin to breathe. I was physically suffocating. I leaned over the sink, splashing cold water on my face, trying to wake up from what had to be a nightmare. But the screen stayed lit. The nightmare wasn't over. It was just getting started. Thread number 3. It was saved under a generic nickname, but I recognized the phone number immediately. I had it saved in my own phone. It was the gay friend. The one she had weekly girls' nights with. The one I never, ever worried about because, well, that was the entire foundational premise of their friendship. It was a complete and utter fabrication. A brilliantly disguised Trojan horse she had brought directly into our lives, into our living room, where I had poured him drinks and laughed at his jokes. He wasn't gay, and they weren't having innocent movie nights. I was numb now. The shock had bypassed panic and settled into a cold, clinical dread. And then, I saw it. The final blow, the absolute kill shot to my soul. Thread number 4. The contact name was my best friend. The guy I had known since we were 7 years old riding bikes in the dirt. The guy who was in the hospital waiting room when my dad died. The guy I was planning to ask to be my best man at our wedding. I sat down hard on the edge of the bathtub, feeling physically violently ill, and spent the next hour scrolling through 8 months of history. 8 months of them exchanging pictures and videos I will never ever be able to scrub from my brain. But the visuals, as horrific as they were, weren't the worst part. The worst part was the casual, effortless cruelty. They had a running joke about my work schedule. They laughed at my double shifts. My best friend, my supposed brother, referred to me as a clueless workhorse. She complained to him that I was always too tired, and he promised to pick up the slack. She was living 4 different, distinct lives, seamlessly transitioning between these men, and I was just the idiot paying the rent for the stage she performed on. I was the safe, boring anchor that allowed her to go out and play these twisted games. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I just walked out into the living room, placed her phone squarely in the middle of the coffee table, sat in the dark armchair, and waited for the sun to come up. I sat perfectly still, watching the shadows stretch across the floor, waiting for the stranger sleeping in my bedroom to wake up. Around 8 in the morning, she finally walked out, rubbing her eyes, wearing one of my oversized t-shirts. She stopped dead in her tracks. She saw my face. She saw the phone sitting on the table like a loaded gun. I expected the usual script. I had mentally prepared myself for it. I expected the color to drain from her face. I expected her to frantically deny it, to say someone hacked her, or that it was a massive misunderstanding. I expected her to fall to her knees, to cry, to unleash a flood of pathetic, desperate begging. Instead, she looked at the phone. She looked at me, and her lips slowly curled upward into a smirk. She laughed. It wasn't a nervous chuckle. It wasn't a hysterical reaction to being caught. It was a genuine, dark, deeply amused laugh that echoed terribly in the quiet apartment. "Took you long enough to figure it out," she said. Her voice was completely flat, entirely devoid of any empathy, guilt, or remorse. I couldn't speak. My vocal cords were paralyzed. I just stared at her, waiting for the punchline to the sickest joke ever told. "You're too predictable," she continued, crossing her arms and casually leaning against the doorframe like we were discussing what to have for dinner. "You wake up, you go to work, you come home, you talk about savings, you go to sleep." It was boring. I was so incredibly bored. In that exact moment, a chilling realization washed over me, freezing the blood in my veins. I wasn't dealing with someone who made a mistake. I wasn't dealing with someone who fell out of love. I was dealing with a predator, a psychological parasite, someone who actively, sadistically enjoyed the deception. The thrill wasn't just the other men. The ultimate thrill was making an absolute fool out of me, looking me in the eye every single day, and knowing she was getting away with it. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. Because you cannot reason with a sociopath. You cannot appeal to the humanity of someone who views you as an object. I silently stood up, grabbed a black trash bag from the kitchen, walked into the bedroom, and threw whatever clothes and essentials I could find into it. As I walked toward the front door, bag slung over my shoulder, she didn't even watch me go. She didn't try to stop me. She just turned around and said she was going out to clear her head, which, given what I now knew, almost certainly meant making a phone call to one of her 4 lifelines to complain about the inconvenience of getting caught. Later that night, as I sat on a saggy mattress in a cheap, neon-lit motel room on the edge of town, my phone buzzed. It was my ex-best friend. I stared at the screen, bracing myself for the apology, hoping, praying for some shred of remorse from the guy I grew up with. Instead, the text simply read, "It wasn't personal, man. These things happen. Don't make a big deal out of it." I didn't reply. I blocked his number. I blocked her number. I found the neighbor, the boss, and the fake friend on every social media platform, and I blocked them too. I severed every single tie to that contaminated, poisonous life in a single evening. The next 2 months were a living hell. I quit my job. I moved to a completely different city 3 states away. I started intensive therapy because my ability to trust anyone, let alone my own judgment, was entirely shattered. I couldn't look at couples on the street without wondering which one of them was lying. I was rebuilding my entire existence from absolute zero. But here is the universal truth about people who spin plates of massive deception. Eventually, the wind changes, and gravity catches up. The universe has a funny way of balancing the scales, and karma rarely misses an appointment. Yesterday afternoon, I was sitting in my new apartment drinking coffee when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Against my better judgment, my thumb swiped accept. On the other end of the line was a voice I hadn't heard in 60 days. But the arrogant, mocking tone from that morning in the apartment was completely gone. Instead, she was hyperventilating. She was sobbing so uncontrollably I could barely make out the words. Through the hysterical tears and the pathetic gasps for air, she painted a picture of absolute, total karmic devastation. Her boss? The married man she thought would take care of her? He got whatever it was he wanted, got paranoid about human resources finding out, and fired her to protect his own 6-figure salary and his reputation. The neighbor down the hall? His lease was up, and he packed up and moved across the country without even leaving a forwarding address or a goodbye text. My ex-best friend? His long-term girlfriend somehow found out about his extracurricular activities, including his involvement with my ex. She publicly exposed him. He lost his home, his girl, and his entire social circle in one massive, humiliating swoop. And the fake gay friend? He completely ghosted her the second she was no longer a convenient, fun secret to play with. Her entire, carefully constructed house of cards had spectacularly collapsed. She was completely alone, totally unemployed, unable to make rent, and incredibly desperate. And then, after delivering this sob story, she had the absolute audacity, the sheer, unadulterated, mind-blowing nerve, to ask the question. She asked if we could work things out. She asked if I could forgive her, if I could come back and save her from the mess she created. I held the phone to my ear, listening to her cry. And I remembered that laugh. I remembered the cold, amused smirk she gave me when my entire world was falling apart. That laugh had haunted my nightmares for 2 straight months. So, I finally returned the favor. I took a deep breath, and I let out a laugh of my own. It wasn't nervous, it wasn't hysterical. It was cold, it was final, and it was the sound of complete and utter closure. And then, without saying a single word, I hung up the phone. Some things in this world are broken beyond repair. And finding out the person you love has been running a 5-person syndicate of betrayal right under your nose. Yeah, that's definitely one of them. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's just walking away, building a better life, and letting them absolutely destroy themselves while you sit back and watch from a safe distance. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Midknight Stories Official for more true tales of betrayal, revenge, and the dark side of human nature. Until next time, trust your gut and watch your back.